Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So recently I cleared up my really messy room, and I mean really messy if you look at some of the photos here. So everything was great and I was enjoying the room quite a bit, but there was one small problem. The whole effect of me clearing up the entire room led to my Sonos Arc Ultra here, the centerpiece of my entire system and setup here in my studio. It changed the sound signature. So what I was familiar with is no longer familiar to me. So my sound changed because I cleaned up my room, right? So if you want to know what happened, just stay on and I'll explain it a little bit to you. Alright, so for those of you who have been on my channel long enough, you will know that I do a lot of in-depth study onto the Sonos sound system or any other sound system for that matter. And I do these kind of charts, the frequency response sweep. So in my room here, I have an Arc Ultra. It's paired with a Sub 4 and a Sub Gen 3, a dual sub setup, and is flanked by ERA 300 for the surround speakers. So this is the frequency response chart. Now it measures how your setup sounds in the particular room that I'm in, right? So there's a mic right up at the ceiling, which you may not be able to see. Let me see if you can see it, if it's tracking. You might be able to see, yep, that's the mic right up here. Okay, so the mic will actually measure the sound response of the speaker setup that we have in the room. So for the Sonos Arc Ultra, you will notice that, well, there's a huge bass hum. So this bass hum here is helped by the dual sub setup, right? Do you need dual sub setup? No, you probably don't, but well, it does help. So there is a lot of sub bass happening. The bass is also not too bad. When it gets into the mid-range of the sound system, it actually flattens out, and flattens out not in a bad way. It does remain quite neutral for the mid-range, and when you go up to the upper mids as well as the treble, as what you can see here, it will flatten out quite a bit and it actually sounds quite alright. There is some presence in the room, but overall the frequency response is pretty flat. Now, so that was what I was familiar with for a very long time. And when I changed up my room, when I cleared it up, the sound changed completely. Now, why is that so? So maybe just let me walk around the room so that you can see from what I'm seeing here. So over on this side, you'll notice a blank wall, right? So at the far end here, I have my PC setup. It's running off a Mac. But on this side here, you'll see a blank wall. And this blank wall is really, really blank, right? So if you see, it is entirely blank. Now on this side is the window. You don't have to care about it. Most of the time when I'm listening or doing testing, I draw the cellular blinds so that it cuts down the reflection a little bit. But this wall here, this blank wall here, is what's causing the problem. So the sound, it is being reflected off this huge, massive wall here. There's no absorption. The sound just keeps bouncing all around the room. And the moment I step in the room, I start speaking, hearing my own voice, I can hear that there's already some degree of echo. So when I did up the room, I had three main guiding principles. It was actually quite easy. I wanted the room to look good, right? It has to look aesthetic from all angles, right? And I mean all angles, like I'm walking through and I have no shame in showing you the room, because previously, you will notice that I shot my video from a very specific angle because that was the angle that you probably can't see the rest of the room, which is terribly messy. Right now, I have no problem showing you the room because from any angle, the room is still going to look great. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to just move it around a little bit. Okay, see, even from this angle, any angle that I'm at, okay, the room looks all right. So first point, aesthetic. The second point is that it's got to be a place that I enjoy being in, right? Because this is my studio, this is where I work, and this is where I watch my movies, I listen to my songs, and I play my games in this particular room. So I need it to be a place where I'm comfortable in and I'm able to enjoy the space. The third is that, well, it's related to the first point, is that I can shoot video from any angle I want. So as you can see, I'm walking around the room. I have no shame in showing you the room because every angle looks good, and that is the main aim of it. So in order to achieve that, I had to clear the room. But by clearing the room, I'm actually introducing this very huge blank wall here. So there are a couple of things I need to do, but before we go on to that, I'll share with you what I thought were the changes. So when I first started listening to the sound of the Sonos Arc Ultra, after 5 days of clearing, I immediately noticed that there was something wrong with the sound, right? The sub bass was not really smooth anymore. There was a particular bass range, I think it is in the mid bass range, that sounded like it was being bumped up. So the bass was a bit less defined. It was a little bit fluffier, if I could say that. It is not so tight anymore, right? Now the mid-range, and that's where most dialogue, most vocals will live, it sounded way forward. So I thought it was something that Sonos changed, but it is actually not. It's nothing to do with Sonos, it's got to do with the room layout. So the vocals became very, very upfront, very, very centered, and it actually made me feel like, hey, the sound sounds a little bit compressed. So the third thing on the treble is something that I didn't notice immediately because I didn't think that there was anything wrong with the treble. But the treble, actually, after I did the frequency response sweep, I realized that it was a little bit recessed, which led to a little bit less presence. So when the bass is a little bit more subdued and the treble is subdued and the mid-range is brought forward, the sound sounds congested. It sounds like it is locked dead center and everything is coming to you at once, right? And what is the cause of it is, well, it's probably this wall, right? It causes some reflection of frequencies. And the frequencies that were being brought up, they were being reflected by the wall and being measured and heard twice or more times in the room, which is the exact problem that we have here. So talking about frequency response sweep, I might as well bring up the chart. So I'll give you the chart right up here so that you can take a look at it yourself. Now, I have smoothed out the chart to make it a little bit easier. So on the red chart, you'll see what you're familiar with will be the Sonos Arc Ultra before I did anything to the room. So the room was cluttered. There were a lot of things in the room. The frequencies weren't going to be bounced around the room that much because I have a lot of things. I had an entire studio backdrop, a backdrop holder in the room covering most of this wall, this blank wall that I have here. So the bass was stronger, and the mid-range as well as the treble was kind of flat throughout, which is a good thing. Now, after I cleared the room, I measured it again. Now, granted, there was a software update, but I don't think they did a lot of changes to the sound profile. But if you look at the sine curve that I'm going to bring up here right now, you'll notice that, okay, this basically corroborates what I was thinking, right? Because the sub bass, the lower frequency of the bass, it was no longer that strong, that punchy. There was a very artificial peak right about 80 hertz or so, which was being pushed up quite significantly. So the bass signature definitely has changed. And it is very clear, very audible when bass signature changed. Your ears will pick that up immediately. Now, when you go to the mid-range for the sine curve is actually a lot higher already. So you'll notice that there's kind of like a bump at about 700 hertz or so, and that will make vocals a little bit more forward, which is exactly what I heard. Now, when you move on to the treble range, the treble above 4 or 5 kilohertz, you'll see the sine curve, which is the measurement of the room after I did the whole cleanup. It actually dropped quite significantly. So the treble will give you presence, will give you the kind of atmospheric balance to the whole room, which was kind of missing a little bit. So like I mentioned earlier in the video, when you reduce the bass and you reduce the treble and the mid-range is being brought up a little bit, the sound sounds a lot more congested. It doesn't sound so dynamic anymore. And that is exactly the problem that I have with the room right now. Now, if you ask me what I'm going to be doing, yes, there's something that I need to do. I will probably need to bring in something to do up this wall here. So this wall here is currently completely blank. Now, when it comes to this kind of size, you probably got to deck it up quite a bit. So what I'm thinking of doing is I will be adding some kind of sound absorption material, not soundproofing material, sound absorption material. I'm still thinking through the design, still thinking about what I want to do with it. I will let you guys know what I decide on. And the second thing I need to do is I probably need to put a large piece of soft furniture in this particular room. So I'm thinking of a recliner sofa, but that's going to take up quite a bit of space. But the whole idea of this room is for me to sit in to enjoy, and it will fit all the principles that I set out when I first wanted to clean up the room, which is for aesthetic, which is for me being able to enjoy the room, and which is for me to be able to shoot the video from any angle. So as long as these three criteria are met, I will still be able to proceed. And that's exactly what I'll be doing. So when that is done, I will share with you what I've done, and I will measure the whole room again to give you an idea of what has changed. So this is probably going to be interesting. If you're not already subscribed, then I do encourage you to ring the notification bell, so when that video drops, you will be notified. And I promise you that will be quite interesting, because if this change is brought about just by me cleaning up the room, you can imagine how much putting in furnishing and dolling up this wall is going to do the sound signature. And you will probably learn a little bit more. If the sound isn't as great as what you thought it should have been, then maybe it's not your Sonos sound system. Maybe it's not any sound system. The room is the key to unlocking sound quality in your room. So I hope to have given you some kind of insights on how this works. And watch out for that video. I will share with you after I've done up this whole room.